In this video, I'm going to discuss some further considerations of shifting. Everything that I talk about builds off of the three main principles from my first shifting video: hand frame and setup, contact with the string, and then the motion of the shift. So if you haven't watched that, it's where I would start. Beyond that, there are several practical and several musical considerations to take into account. The biggest practical one is the idea that I'm always shifting to the bottom of the position. So for example, if I'm shifting an octave from D to D, I'm thinking more about where my thumb is, my anchor in that thumb position, than where the D is, because I've practiced this hand frame in all sorts of ways. So if I'm shifting to the A, I already know where third finger is going to be. It's much more secure than trying to wonder with an independent finger where that note is. We practice this hand frame in our scales when we do thirds, sixths, octaves. We learn that the intervals lower on the string are bigger because the string is longer. We learn that they're smaller as the fingerboard compresses, the string gets shorter. And then once we have that securely under the hand, you have all those notes at your disposal. I don't have to wonder where F sharp is. I know it's right here because I practiced that position so many times. So your thumb is going to sit typically a perfect fourth below third finger, which means that it's an octave. You'll notice, by the way, I have my thumb gently across both strings. And if it's a perfect fourth from thumb to 3, that means it's an octave from thumb on the lower string to third finger on the higher string, just like in first position, open string to fourth finger, D. So you've got a perfect octave here, you have a fourth here, and you've got all these fingers under the hand. If I'm shifting in the lower positions, it's the same idea. So maybe I'm just going to third position E flat. I shift to the D. I shift on the old finger, assuming it's a lower finger. I shift to the bottom of the position D, and then I add the E flat. So I'm always adding the note at the arrival for clarity. Bottom of the position. Practice that way and you'll be much more accurate. Also, if you're stretching, trying to find individual notes, you're less likely to be accurate with pitch and more likely to be tense because you've got these big stretches in the hand. So we want to just be nice and rounded and comfortable all of the time. From there, I have choices about fingerings, and there are some general principles to pick and choose from. And again, these are context-based, aesthetic-based, which is wonderful. So we can affect the color of the piece, the character, by some of these choices that we're making. If I have the choice between a larger shift, like a whole step shift, and a smaller half step shift, I will try to take the half step shift, unless there's a bowing reason or another musical reason not to. So for example, if I want to play B, C, D, E flat, my fingering choice is going to be 1, 1, smallest shift with strong finger, 1, 1, 3, 4. Instead of shifting to the D. Take the smaller shift when you can. If I'm slurring by twos though, maybe I want to choose the one where I'm shifting in between the slur because that's also easier to hide. So I might choose that. If I'm playing 6 notes, I want to do the most efficient thing and play 3 and 3, probably. Unless I have a bowing consideration, maybe I'm in playing 2s by bow, so maybe something like that makes more sense where I can shift outside of the slur. So you've got all of these choices. Play the hand out when you can, shift the smallest distance when you have a choice, and shift in between slurs when you can. And you can pick and choose what makes the most sense for each context. Keep the bow speed consistent unless you intend to have an accent. Your hands work sympathetically, your arms work sympathetically. So if the left side is more active, the right side typically is going to want to be more active as well. If I take, for example, the first 3 notes of the swan, and I allow both hands to be really active, I'll get this big swoop into the note, which I don't want because it doesn't follow the phrasing. The third note is actually the weakest of that beat. So if I keep the bow speed consistent, then I get this nice graceful thing. Okay, so keeping the bow speed consistent, and so we practice all the time, with left hand for pitch, for hand frame, for clarity, etc. In the end, this is our voice, so there are even, with a left hand based thing like shifting, there are bow considerations as well, to get the sound and quality that you want. If you have questions or you'd like to be in touch or play for me, I would love to hear from you. My email is julia.slovarp@montana.edu, and you can also look me up on Facebook or Instagram.